Superstar's a little liberal. Let's not get carried away here. You guys, if you could see this, it's kind of a mess. I kind of know where I'm starting. I don't really know where we're going and where we're going to end up, but this is for you. And so if you have questions along the way, just, hop in. We'll have a good discussion today. So, okay. So power in the fourth quarter, I think is what they're calling this. It's really like power in 2/3 of the fourth quarter because we're missing a month of the fourth quarter already. And your fourth quarter has already been laid out for you. The foundation was laid during third quarter. So I'm not here to tell you how to come up with a bunch of new business in the fourth quarter. You should have already been doing that. And that's okay if you haven't, because I'm going to set you up now for first quarter. But really what I want to set you up for is just power in your life in general, right? Consistency. How do you set these standards and these habits and then have them carry out over and over again? In fact, April Oakes called me yesterday and we had a great conversation and we were talking about pushing hard. And I think George talked about this yesterday. I wasn't there, but we were like, what do you think of pushing really hard and driving hard in the fourth quarter? And I was like, in the past, usually when you start to push hard, it's because you started to get stagnant and you're like, oh no, bank account's getting low, pipeline's pretty low. I've got to push really hard now to make something happen. And you'll do that and you drive like crazy and you have a bunch of business that falls in your pipeline, you close a bunch of deals and then you're exhausted and you're back to where you started. And so pushing hard is great. Having a mentality of working hard is absolutely necessary, but going in those cycles doesn't serve us. We end up like this, up and down and up and down. And what we want is the consistency throughout, right? Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 areas of, just going to move this so I stay on the Zoom, but 3 areas of leveling up, right? I love leveling up because it doesn't matter where you are at in your business, you can always be leveling up. You should always be pushing for what's next. So I'm going to tell you a story. So when I was in high school, my junior year, I had my brother got a car that we shared. It was a Trailblazer. It was like the Forest Service green one, but then our friends had painted it white and it was a stick shift. So I learned how to drive a stick shift in this 2-door Trailblazer in high school. And my brother wrecked it before my senior year when it would have been like my car exclusively. And I got an automatic. So I spent a year kind of learning how to drive a stick shift. There was one memory. This is my sister right here, so she knows what I'm talking about, where there were a lot of F words at a stoplight one time. It was, I feel like I learned how to drive a stick shift and I knew how to drive it, but I wasn't good at it. I was driving it on flat roads mostly, like to and from high school from our house. And so I came here to Utah to go to college, and my friend Gordy had a Volkswagen bus, and I think he kept trying to get me to drive it or something. And I was like, no, I'm embarrassed. And so he's like, we're going to teach you how to drive a stick shift. So he took me over to the Seven Peaks parking lot in Provo. There's this big hill and he parked the Volkswagen bus on a hill. And he was like, okay, get in. And I'm like, I'm on a hill. I'm going to roll backwards. And he was like, exactly. So he put me, it was like an hour that night. He made me go up and down this hill and drive around this parking lot. And by the end of that hour, I could drive stick shift anywhere. I remember going home that summer and my brother now had a little red Acura Integra that was a stick shift, and I would take it to downtown Seattle and drive up the hills in downtown Seattle from the waterfront to the freeway. And I could do it because I learned how to drive stick shift in the hardest possible scenario you could be in. So I have a question for you. If you got a phone call or a text right now from a seller and they said, hey, we're interviewing 3 agents tonight. Can you come to our house at 5 p.m.? We think our house will sell for around 2 to 2.5 million. How many of you would be ready right now to show up in 5.5 hours with your marketing materials, your listing presentation, everything ready to go to show up at this high-end listing? And you're like, I got this. I'm competing against 2 different people. No big deal. I'm totally comfortable. I'm confident. I'm going to walk in. I've got my thing down and I'm good to go. Because I probably wouldn't, and I'm teaching this class, right? I would be able to wing it enough, but to what my standard is, I don't have my materials ready. I haven't been practicing my listing presentation enough. And those of you that go to role play and morning ascent and every good job, you guys. I know you're practicing your listing presentation, and we talk about this a lot. Practice, role play, get ready for it. But what are you practicing? Are you practicing a listing presentation to walk into a $400,000, I mean, that's a townhome now, listing? Or are you practicing for like a $2.5 million listing? Because I promise you, if you practice for the hardest scenario that you're going to be in, the most challenging scenario that you're going to be in, everything else is going to be easier. If you practice for the big one, then when you go to anything else below that, you're going to walk in confident and you're going to nail it because you are prepared for the most challenging scenario in your career. So I want you to think about that in the different areas of your business. And as an agent, are you prepared? One thing that I thought about yesterday, and I printed these so you guys could take a picture after if you want. Do you even know what your fiduciary duties are as an agent? Because usually it's like 90% of agents can't even recite the 6 fiduciary duties that we have to our clients, and you don't really know what they mean. Are you staying up on the market? Are you studying every day, every week, coming to these meetings where you can learn about what's going on in the market so that when you're talking to your clients, you're well versed and you understand what's going on and you know how to negotiate and you understand where the shifts are happening? Because every single month of this year, our market has shifted. Every single month of this year, we've been in a different market than the month before. Did you know that? And do you know what market we're in? The big talk this week, everyone knows, is Zillow. Zillow stopped doing their buying homes, whatever they were doing. They took away Zestimates because guess what? They entered the real estate space like us agents, and they realized like, oh, our Zestimates are shooting us in the foot. They are not helping us sell these houses that we're buying and then trying to sell. So they got rid of Zestimates and they're laying off 25% of their employees this week. So I don't know if you guys saw that and you knew that, but stay knowledgeable in what's going on because you are going to have clients that know that's going on. And if they talk to you about that and ask you what you think about it, and you're like, oh, really? Let me just Google that really quick and I'll let you know what I think about it, right? So take your job as an agent really seriously. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you're knowledgeable. And then the other big one is make sure that you are communicating with your clients consistently. What systems do you have in place so that when you have a listing or a buyer, you're consistently following up with them? I have a whiteboard in my office that I track all my business on. If you want to see that, you can come to my office anytime. It's on the 3rd floor in the northwest corner. But I track my business, and one of the sections that I have is my active buyers and my pre-listing sellers, because if I don't have it on the wall in front of my face, I'll forget about people and I'll forget to follow up. So I have systems to make sure that I don't forget. So leveling up as an agent, that's what we were just talking about, okay? The next thing is leveling up as a business owner. So you're an agent doing your job and you have to do a good job, but you're also a business owner, and that's something different. Being a business owner, I think the number one thing that, so, okay, Ruby mentioned in 2015, I hit Centurion. The next year I hit Master's Diamond and I was like, whoa, what happened? Like, I'm a Centurion producer, and I think the numbers went up. And so I did about the same amount of business I did the year before, but the standard for Centurion had gone up and I didn't meet it. And I got really in my head that year. I think I had a lot going on outside of real estate too. And the next year I hit like Master's Ruby and I was like, well, that's not okay. Like, what's going on? And every year since then I've hit Centurion. One of the things that helped me to become consistent in my business, so there's 2 things actually. The first thing is schedule. I took a position as a manager in the Orem office, a part-time manager with Matt Barton. And one of the reasons that I took that position is I needed to have a schedule. I knew I needed to have a schedule, and I knew that taking that position would hold me accountable to showing up for, not only had I never shown up for morning ascent because I have kids that I was getting off to school and my mornings are busy. I'd never participated in it. And then all of a sudden I was teaching it. And I was like, I don't even know how to teach this because I've never come to it, you know? But what that showed me is that the years before I had been like, well, I have to get my kids off to school and it's busy in the mornings and I'd have to get up like earlier if I was going to make it to morning ascent. I can't do that. That's too hard. But once I put myself in a position where I had to be held, like hold myself accountable to showing up because I had accepted this position as a manager, I showed myself, actually, I can. I had been telling myself I couldn't do it because it was hard to do it. I had to get up earlier. I had to get myself ready, then my kids ready. I had to be on time, which Judy was giving me crap again today because I have a hard time being on time sometimes. But it held me accountable to a schedule, and it was a massive change that I had to make in my life. Taking on that role of being a manager. I was also doing a bunch of other crazy stuff. So being the manager, I planned all the client appreciation events in Provo or in Orem. And then I also was like running my kids' school carnival. Don't ask me why, but I just had a lot of crazy stuff that I was taking on. And I don't spread myself that thin anymore. But what I showed myself then is that I could take on a lot and I could handle a lot and I could do it. And what I learned about myself doing that has been invaluable, because the challenges that come in this business, I know I can take on a lot. I know I can handle a lot. I know I can do it because I pushed myself to do it. So, okay. So the other thing in your business besides your schedule and doing something to hold yourself accountable to your schedule is tracking your business. And to me, this is twofold. This is tracking, this is goal setting, and then tracking your goal. And it's not just your business, but it also ties 100% into your financial life at home. You have to have a system for tracking. I always like tease George that I have this great class I want to teach the agents, and it's called like Know the Math of Your Life for Success, and nobody would show up because it's the most boring title for a class ever. Like, understand the math of your life, and that's the key to consistency in your business. But those of you that track your business, you understand what I'm talking about. If you set your goal and you're tracking that goal consistently, and if I'm not going to get into it right now, but if you want to see what I'm talking about, I will show you exactly how I track in my office. If you set your goal and you know what your goal is and it's laid out, and then you track it, your achievement as you're doing it, that is the single most powerful thing that will provide consistency for you in your business and in your financial life at home. And they go hand in hand. Because when I set my goals for business every year, it is 100% tied to what I'm trying to accomplish financially in my life. The number of investment properties that I want to purchase that year, the vacations that I want to go on, if I'm buying a new car, whatever it is, my financial goals in my personal life and in my building my investment properties and my retirement, essentially, that 100% correlates to what I'm doing at work. And you have to tie those two together and understand the bigger picture to be able to create consistency and build the life that you want to build for yourself. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So that's leveling up in your business. Leveling up as an agent, leveling up in your business. Okay. The third thing we're going to talk about is leveling up yourself. And this is probably the most important one, because you can't do the other things if you are not working on yourself. Okay. So I talked about this for like a microsecond at Elevate. Investing in yourself. What does that mean to invest in yourself? I'm going to tell you what it means to me. So I have an Everest sales system coach who's my real estate coach. I have a Tony Robbins life coach. I have my gym membership that the owner is kind of like my fitness coach. I have, I go to breathwork classes now with Louis Hamner. There's lots of different options out there, but that's an investment every month. But it's helping me at such a rapid pace that it's a huge part of my investing in myself right now. I have not one, but 2 therapists for 2 different reasons, and it's great. Don't worry about it, but that's an investment. And then I count my Audible membership. I have an Audible membership where every month I get a credit, and I buy extra books every month, but listening to audiobooks, that's all a part of me investing in myself. I also think like getting my nails and my hair and like my pedicures, that's an investment in myself because I feel better when I take care of myself, right? We could put shopping in that category. I like to buy clothes. That's an investment in myself. If I look better, I feel better, right? So I did the math, not including the hair, nails, and shopping, but I spend about $2,500 a month on coaching and personally investing in myself. And I just hired the Tony Robbins coach in September because I went through like the hardest period of my life. And I was like, I got to level up. What do I need to do? Because I know the goals that I've set for myself this next year, and they're pretty crazy and pretty out there. And I believe that I can do it, but I haven't shown myself yet that I can do it. So there's that fear, you know? And so I hired a Tony Robbins coach. They are not cheap, but I know that if I want to level up and go to the next place for me, I have to invest in myself more. I can't do it on my own, or I would have done it by now. I've got to have someone else who knows how to get me there, coaching me and teaching me. And without fail, every time I have invested in myself more, I have gotten a way higher return on that investment, way higher return. So if you can't afford to spend $2,500 a month on coaching, on investing on yourself right now, start little, do something. Invest in yourself in an area where you know you're going to get a return on that investment. And then when you're ready to level up again, keep putting that money into yourself. It will pay off. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, how do we know when we need to, we know when we need to make a change, right? You can kind of feel that discomfort and you're like, something isn't working, like something's off. I'm trying to get to this next level and I can't do it. And we can't figure it out. So one thing that I go back to quite often, I do this quite a bit, is George talks about his questions a lot that he asks himself when he journals, and he does this over and over again. Jen, I don't know how many journals he has, but I bet it's a lot, right? So these are the questions that he's given us before at Summit, and I keep them in a note in my phone so that when I'm in that moment where it's time to do the questions, you know, I just have them handy right there and I'll write them in my journal. But I printed this out so you could take a picture of this too. So these are, what are you no longer willing to accept in your life? What does my life look like when it's on track? And then some other questions, and it's family, health, travel, recreation, money, career, leadership, legacy, and spiritual. Okay, I'm gonna take a picture of this after, but when we need to make a change in an area of our business, an area of our life, we have to evaluate first, what do we need to change? And what I have found in my own experience is that I'll make like little changes here or there, or I'll think I'm changing something. But usually when I'm feeling a lot of pain in an area in my life, what needs to happen is I need to make a change that feels painful, that's hard, that's not easy. If there's something that's causing consistent pain in my life and it's like a pain point consistently and I can't get past it, it's usually something has to hurt a little bit for me to make it, to eliminate that pain. You have to feel more pain. It's just the way that it goes. So the first massive step in figuring out what that is you have to tell yourself the truth. Because we lie to ourselves all the time. We're lying to ourselves. There's things still that I'm lying to myself about and I haven't figured it out yet. But I know there's lies that I'm telling myself every single day. You know, you guys are lying to yourself too. Everyone does it. And so to figure out how to shift and go to the next level with something, you have to figure out, where am I lying to myself? That gets really uncomfortable, right? When we have to evaluate ourselves. But it's the number one thing you can do to make a change in your life. So one area of my life that I lied to myself about for years was my health. I had twins in 2009. I'd been in really great shape my whole life before that. I'd had 2 kids before that, didn't struggle getting back into shape, but I carried my twins full term. I was actually 2 days past due. So they were 6 pounds, 13 ounces, 6 pounds, 3 ounces. I had like 20 pounds of water. I think I gained like 75 pounds during that pregnancy. And I have a picture I'll show you if you want to see it, from the night before I delivered them. But I measured 50 weeks pregnant. You know, normally 40 weeks is a normal pregnancy. I was measuring 50 weeks pregnant the day that I delivered them. And you know, if you take a balloon and it's like nice and smooth and you blow it up really, really big and then you deflate the air, how the balloon just doesn't look the same. That's what happened to me. Okay. And I spent years and years and years trying every different, I mean, you name a diet or like an MLM that's a weight loss MLM or CrossFit gym or this gym or whatever, And I would do the hard push that we were talking about at the beginning, like, I'm going to lose this weight. And what would happen is I would lose some weight, but I was like so dissatisfied with how I looked. And I could never get the result I was trying to get. And then I would fill my life with all these crazy things like planning carnivals that I had no business planning. And I would stress eat and like, you know, just deal with all my everything going on. And I would tell myself, like, I already have to get up early to get to the office for morning ascent. I don't have time to go to the gym too. And then I have these kids at home. I just don't have time. I would tell George all the time in our coaching, I have like 4 things I'm responsible for. I can do 2 of them really well. And right now my business and being a mom are the priority. So I do those 2 things really well. Everything else kind of suffers a little bit. But the reality is I was lying to myself. I was lying to myself, telling myself that I couldn't do that. And I talked about this at Elevate too. One of the things that I had to do, the massive, painful, hard thing that I had to do to be able to stay consistent with my motivation to stay healthy is I had to get surgery and eliminate that skin because it wasn't going away. You couldn't take care of it in the gym. So I paid a plastic surgeon to do it. And I have no shame in that because I worked hard to earn that money and I worked hard to have those babies and I wanted something and I went and got it, right? And so I've been able to maintain that and completely change my life and my mindset and how I look at myself. And one of the biggest mindset changes that I've made in regards to my health is that I've signed up for 3 half marathons in the last 10 years. And I was like, I'm going to run a half marathon. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to sign up for this half. I'm going to do the downhill one, the Hobble Creek half. Because that sounds like it'll be easy. And I'll just start training and running and I'd print out a schedule. Then every time what would happen, I wouldn't actually train for it and I wouldn't actually do it because it was hard. It was hard to fit it in. And so I've paid for 3 half marathons I've never run. I know, and I'm like, I don't know why I don't even want to run a half marathon, but it just sounded good at the time. And I thought it'd make me feel like get in shape, you know? So my mindset has completely changed this year. Now I work out 5 days a week. I run a few days a week. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to sign up for a half marathon again in advance. I want to be in the shape that I need to be in. So that if I had a friend call me and say, hey, do you want to run a half marathon next week? I'd be able to say, yeah, let's do it, you know? And so instead of that mindset of, I have this goal and I'm nowhere near it, but I'm just going to like put this out here and then I'm going to magically change my patterns and my habits and get there. I'm like, no, I'm going to change my patterns and my habits and my mindset now. And then if I want that thing with a week's notice, I can have it. So it was a total change in mindset. And now if I'm like, oh, I really need to go for a long run this weekend and I don't really want to do it, I'm like, but I want to be in the kind of shape that if someone asks me if I want to run a half marathon next week, I'll be able to do it. So I better go for that run. For some reason that works for me. You got to figure out what works for you in changing your mindset so that you can live. I mean, I think my whole point is that live the way you want to live now, instead of saying you're going to change something so you can live that way in the future, right? Okay, let's see. Where am I at? I'm all over the place.
Erin,
Yes,
do you mind if I make a comment?
please.
So what you said was, in my head, it reminds me of I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when I buy a new car. I'll be happy when I buy a new house. I'll be happy when I buy a new pair of shoes. I'll be happy when I get that big diamond ring.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not going to make you happy. You can't say, you know, go for that goal or whatever, and that's going to make me happy. You got to change the things within yourself to make you happy.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You also alluded to the fact that you made a goal. It really wasn't your dream goal, but to make sure we're making goals suited to us, not somebody else's ideas of what is cool or what we should work for.
100%. 100%. Thanks. Yes.
Okay, on that, Jackie, you said over, that brings back a lot of things that like Tony Robbins talks about. You said the reason why you did a half marathon is because I thought it would make me feel good doing it. We do things because we think it'll make us feel a certain way. And in our vision, however, you know, even the just even marketing, how people do ads. They do them because they make it, because we associate with it, that it's gonna make us feel really good.
Right.
That's why they want to sell. That's, oh, we should buy that because look, these people are really happy and I'm gonna feel like that if I buy it,
Right.
kind of thing. So just figuring out what it is and why you want to do it, but even feeling good now in the moment that you're working towards something, but what is the real reason, you're doing it? Are you even like
Right.
not achieving your goal because it's gonna make you comfort you in the moment, take away that anxiety that you have now?
Yeah.
But really, focus on your goal. Okay, this is how I really want it to feel in the long run. So
Yeah.
I may not feel that way now, but it's only temporary.
Exactly. And it is that thing that you have to remember, that feeling pain is okay. Going through that hard transition is okay, and it is necessary in order to get to where you want to go. So if you're trying to eliminate pain, you have to feel more pain first to eliminate the pain, right? We have to kind of lean into that and get comfortable with it. So, okay. This is something else that I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it, but we're going to go here, okay? So a lot of you know, like, this year has been a very transformational year for me. I've had the most growth in the last 12 months that I've ever had in my life. And it's because I've done a lot of hard stuff. And it was kind of like, I jumped in and I was like, here we go. Let's just get it all over with as much as we can in 1 year. And so part of that for me has been a relationship ending. My family structure is different now than it was a year ago. But I've been thinking a lot because September was a really, really, really hard month for me. And another thing that George talks about a lot is, if you treat everyone around you like they're going through the most difficult thing in their life, like 75% of the time you're going to be right, which means 3/4 of this room is going through some pretty heavy stuff right now, and people watching, right? So having recently gone through the most difficult thing I've ever been through in my life, and really still coming out of that and trying to heal and process a lot of the trauma that's happened last year, and also being responsible for 4 kids who have gone through a lot of trauma that they're trying to process and heal. This has been front of mind for me. And because I've been making so many changes, and honestly, because I've been with Everest so long, and I've been fed the information that I needed to be fed in order to survive this, I truly believe that being with this company, going to summits, going to elevates, and participating in the growth mentality that we have, the personal development mentality, morning ascents, consistently for years and years and years, the journaling that we do, all of the tools that I've been given that are for my business and my career have been the most valuable asset that I've had going through a pretty big change in my personal life. And so one thing that I was talking about a lot in September and October, because I hit rock bottom, and if you've been here before, I never hit it like I hit it. I'm 42. I've never experienced what I experienced in September. If you've been here before, I like the things that I think about are like, if you have a major medical issue happen, if you've ever had I was listening to an audiobook the other day about a professional athlete. It was a professional volleyball player who got injured and it ended his career. So something like that. A divorce, a death, something major that just rocks your entire world, losing a job, whatever it might be. There's kind of like, for me, my experience has been that it got to a place where I was just so empty. I didn't know if there was anything left inside of me. I didn't know how to function. I was just empty, everything, every tear had been shed, every emotion had come out, and I just didn't really know where to go from there. I knew things would get better, but it was really hard to see that things were going to get better when I was in that moment. But I also knew, like, Erin, you've been given every tool, you have been in this environment for 10 years now, you know what to do. And you can choose to stay here, or you can choose to do things every single day that will propel you out faster, right? And so that's what I did. There was a day where I started The Untethered Soul with my AirPod in my ear and just listened to that whole book in the entire day. And then I was like, what's next? Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights, Mel Robbins' High Five. I mean, I've just been cycling through everything I could cycle through to try to get my mindset right. I've been journaling my questions. I've been doing anything and everything that I can. In fact, my sister and I are going to Tony Robbins next week to unleash the power within, because I'm like, I gotta go big. I cannot afford to stay here very long, primarily because I have kids that need their mom to be mentally healthy and staying on top of things. So I talked to a really good friend of mine a lot in September, almost daily, and mainly just because we've been friends for like 25 years, and she's the one that would let me call and cry and talk, and she put up with me. So I talked to her a lot in September. But I remember her texting me, like, these are the 5 stages of grief throughout the month. And she'd be like, I think you're here, and they don't necessarily have to go in order. You might be here one day and you might be here the next day. And I would be like, am I at acceptance? I hope I'm at acceptance. I think I'm getting close to acceptance, And I finally got to the point where I was like, I think I'm at acceptance. I think I've gone through like all the really hard stuff and I'm accepting this. And I did. And then there was like this space, this undefined space after acceptance when you go through something really hard. And I was like, what is this? Like, I'm in my new life, but I'm not in my next life yet. Like, what I did all of this for. There's like this in-between space that I'm stuck in right now. And so I thought about that a lot because I'm a crazy person. I overthink everything. And I started like putting this little plan together for myself because I'm like, I'm in the in-between. What does that mean? And I started thinking about friends or people I know or stories I'd heard of people who get into the in-between and they get stuck. They start forming bad habits to deal with the pain and the stress. And they cycle through these bad habits over and over and over again, and they get stuck. I have a friend that's been stuck for 7 or 8 years in this in-between space. Same thing over and over and over again, and can't see it, And I can't tell them. They have to figure it out for themselves. So I'm like looking at all these experiences around me, and I'm like, well, I'm 42. I have a business to run. I have goals. I have kids. I have all this stuff I'm responsible for. I cannot afford to stay here and get stuck in it like I've seen other people do. And so I kind of developed a little plan for myself. And I was like, okay, every morning you're going to wake up, you're in the in-between. That's just where you are. You have to choose what you're going to do with it. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to wake up every day and be like, oh, I feel sad today. I'm just going to stay home and feel sad because that feels better than going to work and pretending like everything is fine. A few people in the room have actually been around me on the days when I was here and I wasn't really mentally here, but I was here showing up because I was like, the only way that I'm going to get out of this space faster is if I show up and I do the things that I'm supposed to do and I choose, I'm going to be happy. And that's kind of what I told myself. There's this in-between space that I'm going to be happy in instead of getting stuck in. And that's a choice that I can make. And so what I found, and this is relatively short, I'm like, this theory that I have, I'll let you know later if this worked out for me or not. But every morning I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm in the in-between. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to choose to be happy. And my theory is that it's going to shorten the amount of time that I stay in there. And I'm going to be able to kind of feel settled in my new life a little bit sooner. And that it will be a more natural transition, right? And so what I found is that in the beginning, I would have just this really hard day and I didn't even really know why, just full of emotion and like sadness, and it would hit me and it would be hard to get through the day. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. I don't want to do days like this very often. But then I'd have like a span of good days and I would realize, oh, I let myself feel all of that trauma and that pain. And then I had some good days after. I kind of processed it that day. And then out of the blue, I would have another day where something triggered me and I was like, oh, this is hard. I'm feeling it today. But then the number of good days in between, because I was saying, I'm going to be happy in this space, I would have more good days. And then I'd have a little hard day and then maybe wasn't as bad as the other ones. And then I'd have even more good days in between. And so I can actually see this working right now for me as I'm going through this process of healing and building a new life. Like, my life was going this direction and now it's like over here. I'm on a completely different course and I'm a planner and a goal setter and I knew exactly what my life was going to be. And the fear kept me in that situation longer than it probably should have, because now I'm like, I have goals, but I don't really know. I don't really know what's going to happen. I kind of have to surrender to what's going to come to me. So I don't know if all of this is coming together or not, but what I'm trying to drive the point home is that focusing when you're out of alignment and you can feel that and you're constantly talking about, I just want to be balanced. I just want to figure out how to like have consistency in my business and be consistent at home and consistent in these areas of your life. You can work on the business, you can work on yourself as an agent, but if you're neglecting yourself and what the alignment of yourself, the other stuff is always going to kind of be struggling and out of alignment and out of sync. If you can get yourself in alignment and centered with yourself, it's going to make everything else a little bit easier. So, okay. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments or anything at this point? Yeah.
What would you say is a good practice to center yourself, set yourself up?
I have an answer to that. So I talked about the questions that I go back to and revert to often when I'm out of alignment. And I have 2 new questions that I ask myself, and they're uncomfortable questions. I'm just warning you. Some of you are going to be like, nah, I don't know about that. I ask those questions about the specific areas of my life, and then I ask myself, and I journal this. You got to put it on paper. You can't just do the thought process. It has to be written down. What am I lying to myself about right now? What am I lying about? Because, and this is super, super personal, and I'm sorry to go here if it makes some of you uncomfortable. I am not an advocate of marriages ending. I am an advocate of addressing if you have to address a problem in your life, fix it, right? I spent 3.5 years trying to fix something that I finally realized it just, it takes 2 people. So one of the things I had to do was be really honest about how I felt, and how I felt was going to hurt a lot of people in my life. And so for a long time, I hurt myself because I would rather hurt myself than hurt these people that I loved and cared about in my life. And so getting really, really honest about how I felt and actually saying out loud to people things that were going to hurt them was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life. But it was also the thing that freed me. I talk about it like taking handcuffs off of myself. I literally felt like I had handcuffs on, and I took them off when I was finally honest. And it started with being honest with myself. And then there were some people I had to be honest with in my life, and it hurt them. It did. And that's okay. Because you can't hurt yourself over and over and over again and be the person that you need to be for the people around you. My kids have hurt more than they've ever hurt in their life. My 18-year-old daughter moved out this summer. She graduated from high school. And I'm like, for her, this transition is pretty normal. She's moving out, dad's moving out, things are changing. But I have a 16-year-old and 2 12-year-olds that I'm like, really what happened is their transition of their family dynamic changing. For my 18-year-old, it was very natural. My son got shorted 2 years, and my twins got shorted 6 years. It happened sooner for them. Their family dynamic changed. That happened for me when I left for college. My family dynamic changed. They had it a little bit prematurely. Their brains aren't as developed. And so I know that getting honest with myself, as much as it's hurt other people, because now I'm in a spot where I'm speaking my truth and feeling my truth more than I ever have, I'm helping them greater than I've ever helped my children before, because I'm capable to do that now because I told the truth. So think about where in your life you're lying to yourself. Is it in your business? Are you like, I'm just working so hard and I'm not getting any new clients? Bullshit. You are not working hard if you are not getting new business. You are lying to yourself if you're saying that you're working hard and you're not getting new business. Own it. Look in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm lying to myself. I'm going to call you guys out because you told me this, the Herds. They went to, was it an Elevate?
It was over.
Yes.
And put how much into your pipeline?
30K in 2 weeks.
30 grand in 2 weeks, and closed how much?
20, 21.
And what happened after that?
Nothing.
Because why?
Because we got lazy.
They
and
stopped
slacked
working. But they've proven to themselves that they can do it. And now you all know. So now we're going to hold you
Yeah.
accountable.
on. Yes.
They can do it. So they're lying to themselves when they say, it's not working. Like we're showing up to the office every day, but it's not working. So here's another idea that I had. it's really, really hard to be perfect in our schedule and our business, like day to day, right? How many of you are 100% consistent every single day? Nobody is 100% consistent every day. So what if you picked one day a week and you were like, on Tuesday, I'm gonna have a perfect day. And that might be from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Maybe that's your perfect day. I'm not talking about like 10 hours. I'm gonna be perfect in my schedule one day a week so that you can get really comfortable with understanding what holding yourself accountable looks like. And you get everything done at the time you say you're going to, you make the number of calls you say you're going to. Someone comes to your office door and you're like, no, get out, leave. It's my perfect day. You have to go. I'll talk to you later. And you just hold yourself accountable one day a week. Because if we're doing nothing right now and we're like, okay, tomorrow's the day I'm going to start and I'm going to be perfect all week this week. I have a new schedule and I'm going to follow it. You're not going to do it. Sorry.
Yeah, you're stuck in getting ready to get ready.
Yeah, you're not going to do it. Pick one day and have one perfect day a week. And I bet you before you know it, the other days are going to be 70 to 80%. And then you can say, hey, I've got one day down and it's super normal and natural and it feels good and it's easy now. So I'm going to do a second day. I'm going to have Tuesday and Thursday are both going to be perfect days. And what you're going to see is that your business, your pipeline is going to start to fill up. When you feed your pipeline will feed you. Stop worrying about your pipeline feeding you and what's coming out of it. Focus on what you're putting into it. Feed your pipeline. Be constantly putting people into it and it is going to just funnel it back out to you. Take some time. So you got to be consistent for 2 to 3 months and then you can't stop. But if you constantly feed it and put stuff into it, just trust that law of reciprocity. It's going to start pumping stuff out for you. So don't worry about what's coming out of your pipeline. Don't worry about what's being fed to you. Worry about what you're putting into it. Don't worry about how many referrals your clients are sending you. Worry about what you're giving to them and what you're providing to them that's going to cause them to be like, I just love Joanna. Oh, you need a real estate agent? I love my real estate agent, Joanna. She calls me. She sends me these little coupons in the mail. She has these great client appreciation events. She really cares about me. You should work with her, right? If you call someone every 6 months and you're like, do you have any referrals? You know, well, no. But if you call someone every 3 months and you have a conversation with them about what you saw them post on Instagram and their dog that's crazy or whatever, and you're laughing with them and saying, oh, hey, by the way, I have this client appreciation event coming up. I hope you can come. Can you make it? And you're giving to them and feeding them. And you're telling, this is one of my favorite lines to use with a client to ask for a referral. You guys are so awesome. You're my favorite clients. If I could clone you and make every single person like you, my job would be perfect. If you, I know your friends aren't as cool as you. Like, obviously you're the coolest. But if you have other people that are like you, like I'm assuming your friends are similar to you, that's who I want to work with. Please send me your people because you guys are amazing. You must have amazing friends. That's how I ask for referrals. Right? It's a totally different way where you're feeding them and giving to them and saying, you are who I want to work with. Send them to me. And they do. Okay, where are we on time? Okay, we have 6 minutes. Who has questions for me? April.
What was your second question? You said you had 2 questions.
Oh.
to journal.
Okay, they're similar, but they're so different. So one is being honest with yourself. The other one is holding yourself accountable. How are you going to hold yourself? Where do I need to be accountable? What am I not taking accountability for? Here's another way of saying it. Who am I blaming for my failures? I'm not taking accountability for the areas I'm failing in my life. It's my kids' fault. They're a handful. They require a lot of my time. It's the people in the office that come knock on my door constantly and interrupt me and I can't get anything done because they're constantly coming in. Put a sign on your door, lock your door. Don't bother me until 1 o'clock. Where do you need to take accountability for things that aren't going right in your life that you're blaming other people for? Because you are blaming other people for it. We all do. And here's the thing, you could ask yourself these 2 questions every single morning and you could uncover something new that you're lying to yourself about and something that you're blaming someone else for. If you did that every day, you would come up with something new. Ow. Right? Yeah. But can you imagine the change in even a month if you did that every single day? and started being honest and started taking accountability and started taking control of your life and controlling where you're going, controlling your business, where it's heading. You know, my tracking that I use, it's like on a whiteboard. It's the dumbest thing ever, but it's a system that works. And I have like all my people that are under contract, all my listings for every quarter of the year. I track by quarter because if I track by month, it's too easy to fail. If I have a bad month, I can make up for it in the next 2 months. So I track by quarters. And it works for me because if it's the end of, like it's November, beginning of November right now, my October numbers sucked. I was like a non-existent human in September. I barely functioned. I don't know how I have any business going on right now. I have some because of the past work that I've done to set up momentum. But October was a slow month for me. And I have these numbers that I got to fill in on my whiteboard that are empty right now. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a Seahawks fan. They like to come back in the fourth quarter. They do. Right? Sometimes they fail, but they get close. They get dang close. It's always like neck and neck when they fail, right? But if you watch football, you know the Seahawks like are lazy until the fourth quarter, and then somehow they find all this energy and they come back and hustle and try to win. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm hustling. I'm like, I have 30 days to be able to close stuff before the end of the year. And I am rapidly lining stuff up because I'm just practicing the things that if I do it consistently, it keeps consistency in my business. I'm calling people, I'm texting people, I'm dropping treats off to people. I'm, you know, all the little things that I do in my SOI business. So yeah, accountability. Hold yourself accountable and stop blaming other people and be honest with yourself about where you're doing it. Okay, we have like 2.5 minutes left. Any other questions?
I just wanted to make a quick comment. We blame others for what we don't do and our failures, right? But do we give them credit when we're succeeding? It can't go both ways.
No, we don't. We want to take the credit.
Like, hey, I'm
We
thinking
did
the
it.
person interrupted me 10 times last week and I
Uh-huh.
got my job done. But hey, guess what? I had like 4 closings. So
Yeah,
they go gradually. That doesn't happen.
no,
So being true to yourself is a big deal and admitting that. So I love that you brought that up today because it's true.
yeah. Put a mirror like by your door in your office, and every time you walk out, look at yourself and be like, are you telling yourself the truth? Are you holding yourself accountable? You know what I mean?
Are you calling yourself a liar today?
Yeah.
I
Like,
guess that's a
what are you
big
lying about?
question for me, is how hard was it get to that point?
It's taken, okay, here's the thing. It's taken me, I'm 42. It took me 41 years to like even tell my parents some things about me that I was hiding from them, you know? And I finally literally reached a point where I called them one night. There was shit was hitting the fan at my house. It was like the worst it's ever been. And I called my dad and I was crying and I was like, I don't know what to do and da da da. And by the way, you got to know this about me and this about me and this about me. And I know you think differently, but I'm so tired of pretending to be someone that I'm not. Like, this is me. And the next time I saw him, he wrapped his arms around me and he was like, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you, you know? And so I knew they would love me anyway, but I was just, I knew how they felt about certain things in my life. I already knew how they felt and I just didn't want to face the disapproval or whatever. And it wasn't even there. I made it up in my head. I also had my therapist ask me that week, Erin, why did you call your dad? I'm curious, why did you call your dad? And I was like, I don't know, like I needed help. And she's like, you're 41 years old. You have 4 children. You run a very successful business. You're a confident, strong, capable woman. You don't need your dad to help you. Why didn't you trust yourself in that situation to stand up for yourself and say, this is not acceptable. You cannot treat me this way. Why do you need your dad to do it? And I was like, oh,
Hello.
I can stand up for myself. I can start speaking my truth and saying like, no, you don't have access to me. You're cut off. This is who I am. It's your choice whether you love me or not. It's your choice whether you accept me or not. And that freed me. It took the handcuffs off.
That's awesome.
That's
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah, to echo this point, I was listening to a Tony Robbins recording the other day, and he talked about how change can happen so quickly but becoming the person who can make that change is what can take time.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting because so often we limit or we stop ourselves because
Uh-huh.
of fear, of everything else going on in our lives.
Yeah.
To keep us from getting to that person who can't say
Yeah.
that
Mm.
or make that decision or be brave.
It's so true, because I was
So
talking
true.
to a friend last week and I said, it's taken me 42 years to feel this way. And I'm worried that like what I want isn't gonna happen now. Like I can't wait another 10 years or whatever for what I want. He said, Erin, it hasn't taken you 42 years to find this. It's taking you 42 years to be ready for it. Now that you're ready for it, things are gonna happen fast because you're ready now. Didn't take you 42 years to discover or whatever. You just weren't ready for it. Now you're ready for it. Now the things that you want, if you stay in the same momentum and the same pace, they're gonna come pretty rapidly because you're ready for it, right? So,
Awesome.
Quick question.
yes.
During this transformation, and like you say, you're still in it somewhat, did you feel guilty a lot of the times and put the guilt on you because of
Such a good question.
where you've been? And like you say, probably just from hearing you saying that, at least for a time that you felt that it took you 42 years, that's a guilt right there.
Mhm.
So, I mean, how do we get past the guilt to be able to start accepting ourselves in a positive way?
That's a really good question. Yes, your answer is yes. I felt guilty all the time. I would use the word martyr all the time. I'll just keep being the martyr.
Interesting.
I will carry all of this for everyone else because I don't want to hurt the other people around me. That would hurt me so bad to hurt the other people around me. Now being on the other side of it, I was hurting myself so much that I was hurting the people around me. They were suffering. My 18-year-old daughter suffered a lot the last 5 years. She suffered a lot in our household, the way that things were going. And she's freed of it as well. Because my specific situation, and again, please, 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 nobody go home and tell your spouse that you want to get divorced. I am not a proponent of that at all. I'm saying fix yourself and what's going on with you. Then it could be something totally different, right? I'm trying to figure out how I got to that point, and it was really just that it was a process. It took some time, and what finally I think allowed me to make the switch is that someone that I trusted a lot gave me permission. And when that person that I trusted a lot gave me permission, I leaned into it. I was ready for it. But I'm telling you, don't wait for someone to give you permission. Do it now. Some of you are a lot younger than me. Do it now. Don't wait. I'm giving you permission. Own it. Get your life on course with the direction that you want. And you're probably going to have to do it again and again and again. Redirect where you're going. Be honest with yourself about what's going on. What do you need to change? What needs to be corrected?
I was just gonna kind of expand on that a little bit. It's like something like that aspect, how do you feel like not feel guilty? Like you need to realize and like have like a mindset that everything is working out perfectly for you if you
Yes.
believe it's true. Like I needed this challenge to change me to who I need to become perfectly, and I have it at the perfect time. And it's okay that I've done all these things, and forgiving yourself is a hard process, especially for me. It's something I had to learn to do over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm gonna have to do for the rest of my life. Just continue to forgive myself and just believe that things are happening perfectly for the best outcome of my life. So
Well, and I really think more than anything else, the whole principle of being honest and telling the truth. If you're lying to people in your life that are important to you because you think it's what's going to serve them or make them happy, but you're not happy because of that lie that you're telling, that's where you start. That's where it all begins, is just you being honest with yourself and then telling the people who you need to be honest with about it, the other people affected by it, telling them the truth too. Because a lot of times I think it can work itself out if you start being honest. You know what I mean? It will, in one way or another, it will work itself out, but it starts with you actually being okay with feeling how you feel and saying how you feel, and then telling the people who need to know. Not everyone needs to know, but there are certain people that might need to know how you feel about that. Like, actually, I've been saying for years that I'm okay with this, not okay with this. I've been lying because I didn't want to hurt you. Something as simple as that will unlock everything. And once you lean into that and you kind of surrender to it, it's gonna start happening in all these different areas of your life, and that momentum will pick up because you're leaning into it, you're surrendering. You guys, thank you so much for coming and listening to me ramble on and on today. And like I said, you're welcome to come down to my office and I'll show you the nitty gritty of the business stuff that I do. Yeah, she lives in my neighborhood, so if you guys want to know where she lives, let me know. Erin Mehler, you guys.